The night it finally broke me was not the worst night, but it was the quietest. The kitchen clock ticked like a slow drip in a cave. My phone lay face down on the table, a smear of foundation on the screen where I'd pressed it to my cheek to hide the bruise. Outside, Columbus, Ohio, was wrapped in winter, the kind of cold that makes the world sound hollow. I held a mug I wasn't drinking from and whispered into the empty room, "Jehovah, do you see me?" Quick note to my dear viewers. Thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed and keeps supporting these faith-building stories. You mean the world to me. If you're new here, please subscribe, like, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next chapters of this true-to-life, Bible-based series. Your support helps me share more uplifting, dramatic stories that point to Jehovah's love. Now, back to the story. My name is Naomi. I'm 33 years old, and until recently, I believed my life was something that only happened to other people, like a show I watched through my fingers. I grew up 2 hours south of here in a small town where everyone waved at red lights and the church bells counted our days. My mother taught me to pray, though we didn't use Jehovah's name back then. She'd say, "God is listening, baby," and I'd look at the ceiling and imagine a huge, kind ear pressed to our house. I moved to Columbus for a fresh start. I got a job as a medical billing clerk at a small clinic near Broad Street. It wasn't glamorous, but I liked the order of it, numbers that balanced, forms that could be cleared and filed. That's where I met Mark. He was charming in the way men are when they're standing in a waiting room holding flowers. He came in with a friend who'd hurt his wrist. He asked for directions and then asked for my number. He said I had story eyes. I didn't know then that he meant a story he wanted to control. We got married fast, like people jumping on a train. The first year was loud and bright. He talked about plans, a house we'd buy, the children we'd raise, the places we'd see. He took my hand as we walked through furniture stores and told the salesman, "My wife likes light wood, she's sunshine." I liked being someone's sunshine. I liked being chosen. The first time he yelled and slammed the door hard enough to rattle the picture frames, I told myself we were both just tired. The first time he grabbed my wrist to stop me from walking away, I told myself I was being dramatic. The first time he apologized with flowers and tears, I told myself love was work. Later, when the apologies were rarer and the silences heavier, I told myself I had made this bed. I didn't realize how cruel those words were to a heart trying to survive. Abuse is a slow fog. It rolls in along the floor of your mind until you don't see your feet anymore. I stopped visiting my sister on weekends because we had plans. I stopped answering texts from friends because they made Mark uneasy. I changed my lipstick because red was too loud. I learned to cook what he liked and laugh when he needed to feel funny and be absent from myself when his eyes went flat. He didn't need black eyes to keep me quiet. He only needed my love and his disappointment. I still prayed, but my prayers got smaller. Please make dinner go well. Please let him have a good day at work. Please help me not say the wrong thing. I didn't know Jehovah's name then, but I believed there was someone. I just felt too small to draw his attention. I thought of the world with all its noise, sirens and wars and broken headlines, and thought, who am I? I started to think of God like a busy manager, and I didn't want to be a problem employee. At the clinic, life pretended to be normal. Computers hummed, phones rang, the printer jammed every third Tuesday. Patients were patient or not. The other billing clerks swapped recipes and TikTok hacks and pictures of kids in Halloween costumes. I smiled where a smile was needed. I turned my chair slightly so the desk lamp lit the right side of my face more than the left. It's amazing how much of yourself you can hide with office lighting and polite laughter. That was where I met Angela. She wasn't flashy. She wore simple sweaters and calm jewelry that looked like sunshine caught in metal. She worked the front desk and remembered everyone's name. When patients were nervous, she asked about their dogs or their gardens until their hands stopped shaking. She never pushed, never pried, but she looked at you like a steady porch light, on when you needed it. One Tuesday in January, the printer did its usual paper-eating trick. I was kneeling on the carpet, half inside the machine, trying to coax out a crumpled form, when Angela crouched beside me with a calm so solid I wanted to put my forehead on it. "You okay?" she asked, not in the vague way people do, but like she had put her ear to the door of my life and was listening. "Just the printer," I said, my voice brighter than it should have been. The paper came loose with a small gasp. I sat back on my heels and then realized how much it hurt to sit like that. I stood too fast. The room tipped a little. She steadied me with 2 fingers on my elbow. "Sometimes," she said, "things jam in the worst places." I laughed, but it sounded like a glass I'd set down too hard. "Story of my life," I said, and I don't know why I said it. Maybe I was tired. Maybe something in me was done being clever. Angela didn't let go of my elbow just yet. "I'm making tea," she said. "Come warm your hands." In the break room, she set a mug in front of me and waited while the kettle clicked. My hands were shaking, and I hated that she could see it. She didn't look at my hands. She asked about my niece's birthday party, the one I had missed because we had plans. I told her it was lovely from the photos. Her eyes were kind, but not pitying. Finally she said, "Naomi, I'm a Jehovah's Witness. May I share a thought from the Bible that helps me when life feels too heavy to hold alone?" The way she asked, soft, respectful, like she was offering a coat to someone shivering, made me nod before fear could say no. I had plenty of opinions about religion. Some of them were hand-me-downs, and some were my own scratches. But in that moment, it didn't feel like a debate. It felt like a hand in the dark. She opened a small, well-worn Bible app on her phone. "This is not to preach at you," she said. "It's to remind both of us." Then she read a verse in a quiet voice, so the room had to lean in to listen. "Throw your burden on Jehovah, and he will sustain you." She looked up. It's from Psalm 55, verse 22. I don't know what I expected. Lightning? A flash of certainty? Instead, it was like a window cracked open in a closed room. The air changed. The word Jehovah felt new in my mouth. I had known the word God all my life, big and general like the sky. But Jehovah felt personal, like someone with a name was in the room. The verse itself didn't solve my marriage or make my bruises vanish. But it did something stranger. It gave my pain a place to go. I nodded, swallowed. "That's nice," I said, the way we are trained to say on Midwestern tongues that don't want to need anything. Angela didn't push. She sipped her tea. "Sometimes," she said, "I forget to throw. I hold the burden like it's my job, and I get exhausted wondering why I'm so tired." I stared at the steam rising from my cup. I wanted to tell her everything. I wanted to unzip the silence and show her the blue and purple and red and the thin line of fear that wrapped around my throat. But the rules of my world were clear. We don't make Mark angry by telling strangers our business. So I said, "We all have stress." It sounded like a line from a magazine in a dentist waiting room. Angela nodded, not fooled, not offended. "We do," she said. "But not all stress is meant to be carried alone. If you ever want to read more together, I'd love that. No pressure. Just an invitation." That night, Mark was in a good mood. He told a story at dinner. He made me laugh. He touched my shoulder with the same hand that had held me too hard last week. Love is confusing when you keep a ledger of both sides. After dishes, he watched a game and I sat on the edge of the tub, looking at the bathroom tiles and the bruise shaped like a thumbprint on my left shoulder. I whispered, "Throw your burden on Jehovah." The words tasted like a new recipe. I didn't know how to do the throwing part, but I knew what the burden felt like. I pictured my fear as a heavy, ugly bag and set it on the bath mat. "This is yours," I said, and then felt ridiculous, like a child playing pretend. Still, when I went to bed, I slept without waking up to check the locks 3 times. Maybe that was nothing. Maybe it was the window opening a little wider. In the days after that, Angela didn't ambush me with verses or bubble wrap me with pity. She just kept being herself, steady, warm, available. She brought in cinnamon bread one morning and left a slice on my desk with a sticky note smiley face. She asked how my weekend had been and didn't look away when I said, quiet. She taught me the break room coffee machine's secret trick. She laughed with her whole face. And once, when the office was empty, she said, I pray for you when I drive to work. What do you pray? I asked, not challenging, just curious. That Jehovah will help you feel how much he sees you, she said. And that he gives you courage. Courage was a word I had not used for myself in a long time. Courage was for nurses on the night shift and moms with 3 jobs and firefighters and girls who left town with a backpack and a map. Courage was not for women who fold their laughter into small squares so it won't take up space on the couch. But the word found a seat next to me and didn't leave. On a Friday lunch break, when the clinic was half closed and the waiting room hummed with soft radio music, I reached for my phone and scrolled to the message Angela had sent earlier that week. If you'd ever would you like to read the Bible together? We could look at who Jehovah is. No pressure, Naomi, only if you want to. I stared at it so long the screen dimmed. I thought of Mark's good days and bad days, our wedding picture on the mantel, my mother's voice saying God listens, my own whisper in the kitchen asking if he saw me. I typed and erased 3 replies. Finally I wrote, yes. Maybe we could meet somewhere quiet. I don't know what I'm doing. She replied within a minute. You don't have to know. Jehovah does. We can meet at the library after work next week, if you'd like. I'll bring a Bible and a simple study aid. We'll just read and talk. I'll listen. That night, Mark came home sour. Someone at work had disrespected him. He wanted to know why dinner was late. He wanted to know why I had not texted back fast enough. He wanted to know why I had changed my perfume. The anger rose like heat from a sidewalk. I answered carefully, laid out explanations like napkins, tried to keep my voice level. It didn't matter. It never mattered. Something boiled over, and he knocked the fork from my hand and said a word that made me flinch with my whole body. Later, he said he was sorry without looking at me and fell asleep with the game's light flickering across his face. In the bathroom, I closed the door and slid to the floor. I didn't pray fancy. I didn't pray long. I said, Jehovah, if you truly see me, please help me. It was the first time I used his name out loud in our apartment. The room felt different. Not safer. Not yet. But different, like a road sign had appeared in the fog, pointing to a way that wasn't back the way I came. The next Wednesday, the library smelled like paper and possibility. Angela sat at a small table with a bright blue notebook and a Bible. She stood when she saw me, and I cried, the ugly kind, the kind that leaves your nose red and your makeup questionable. She didn't fuss. She handed me a tissue and let me sit and breathe. Then she said, You're not alone. Shall we read? I nodded. I didn't know then that the words we'd read in the weeks to come, words like 1 Peter 5 verse 7, cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you, would become a lifeline. I didn't know that a congregation's warmth could feel like a quilt over cold shoulders. I didn't know that Jehovah's care was not vague and far away, but steady and near. I only knew that a woman with calm jewelry and a gentle voice had offered to open a book with me, and that my burden had somewhere to go besides my bones. Naomi, she said, before we start, I want you to know something. Jehovah never asks his servants to stay where they're being harmed. He sees, and he cares. We'll walk slowly. We'll read. And we'll pray for courage. I took a breath that reached places air hadn't reached in months. I looked at the page. I whispered, okay. And for the first time in a long time, the word didn't taste like surrender, it tasted like beginning. That night, back in my kitchen, the clock ticked the same way it always had. But I felt different. I said Jehovah's name again, not like a question, but like a handhold. I didn't have answers. I still measured footsteps in the hall and looked for shadows before I walked into rooms. But there was a blue notebook in my bag and a verse in my pocket and a sister's number on my phone. There was a way to throw what I could no longer carry. There was a God with a name. And he saw me. If you've ever tried to breathe underwater, you know that moment, the clawing for air, the ache in your chest, the panic telling you this is it. That's how I felt walking into the library that Wednesday. My lungs worked, but fear sat heavy, like a wet coat I couldn't peel off. I almost turned around twice. First, in the parking lot, when I saw a father reading to his daughter in the back seat of a minivan. I thought, normal people live normal lives. Why can't I? The second time was when I stepped inside and saw the shelves like tall soldiers lined in silence. Quiet rooms scare you when your life is full of noise. But then I saw Angela at a small table near the windows. Sunlight made her hair look like warm honey. She waved, not a big wave, just enough to say, "I see you." Something about that calmed the pounding in my ears. I walked over, clutching my tote like it was armor. "Naomi," she said, and her voice was the opposite of everything I'd been living. It was soft without being weak, steady without being cold. "Thank you for coming." "Thanks for inviting me," I said, my throat dry as printer paper. I sat. The chair didn't collapse. Neither did I. She had a slim tablet, a Bible, and a small blue notebook. "I thought we could start with something simple," she said. "Just talking about who Jehovah is, and what he wants for you." The word Jehovah still felt new in my mouth, like a secret only a few knew. "I've prayed before," I blurted, "but I don't know if he listened." Angela nodded like this was the most natural confession in the world. "I understand that feeling," she said. "But you know what's beautiful? Jehovah wants you to know him by name. Psalm 83 verse 18 says his name is Jehovah. He's not distant. He's a father who sees every tear, even the ones no one else sees. Tears. The forbidden word. I laughed to keep from crying. "If that's true," I said, "he must be tired of me by now." She smiled, not the pity smile I dreaded, but the kind that says, "I've been there." "Jehovah never gets tired of you," she said. Then she read a scripture that would tattoo itself on my heart, 1 Peter 5 verse 7, "Throw all your anxiety on him, because he cares for you." I stared at those words on the thin page. Anxiety. Not some of it. Not most of it. All of it. And why? Because he cares. Not because he has to, not because you earned it, but because he cares. I didn't realize I was crying until a tear hit the notebook between us. "I don't even know how to start," I whispered. "You just did," she said. "That's the first prayer, Jehovah, help me." For the next 45 minutes, we read verses I'd never seen, words that sounded like rescue ropes thrown across a canyon. Psalm 55 verse 22 again, "Throw your burden on Jehovah, and he will sustain you." And Isaiah 41 verse 10, "Do not be afraid, for I am with you. Do not be anxious, for I am your God." Each verse was like light finding cracks in a boarded-up house. I told Angela things I hadn't told anyone, not all of it, not yet, but enough for her to understand the storm I lived in. She didn't flinch. She didn't gasp. She just listened like listening was an art. Then she said something that startled me, "Naomi, Jehovah never expects his servants to stay in harm's way. He values your life. You're precious to him." Precious. Another word I had not worn in years. Mark had called me pretty once, then called me a problem more times than I could count. But precious? That was a word for glass figurines and diamonds in velvet boxes, not for women who memorized the sound of footsteps to survive dinner. Yet there it was, hanging in the air like a dare. What if you are? We closed with a prayer, Angela's voice low, steady, saying my name to Jehovah like introducing me to someone I'd always needed but never really met. "Jehovah," she said, "please help Naomi feel your love tonight. Please give her courage and peace." When she said amen, something in me loosened, like a knot untangling under warm water. The days that followed were a strange mix of hope and fear. I would wake up to Mark's moods, good, bad, unpredictable, and feel like I was standing on a fault line. But under my breath, I repeated Isaiah 41 verse 10 like a secret code, "Do not be afraid. I am with you." I wrote it on a sticky note and hid it in my wallet. At work, Angela and I studied during lunch breaks. We started using the Enjoy Life Forever brochure, and for the first time, Bible words felt like medicine, not rules. Every lesson showed me a God who wanted to heal, not hurt. Mark noticed something was different. "What's with the smiles?" he asked one night, half joking, half suspicious. I shrugged. "Just, work's been okay." I didn't dare mention Angela or the studies. Not yet. But when he snapped at me for buying the wrong cereal, I didn't crumble like before. I prayed silently, "Jehovah, help me stay calm." And somehow, I did. The hardest part was the guilt. The world, and Mark, had trained me to think leaving would make me a failure, a sinner, a homewrecker. But the Bible was telling me something else. Jehovah values life over vows made in fear. That truth scared me and freed me all at once. One night, after a study on prayer, I sat on the bathroom floor and whispered, "Jehovah, I'm so scared. Please, just show me the next step." Not 10 minutes later, Angela texted, "Just wanted you to know I prayed for you tonight. You're not alone." Coincidence? Maybe. But it felt like Jehovah whispering back, "I see you." Practical lesson for you, my viewer, if you're listening and you feel trapped by fear, by pain, by anything that steals your peace, please know this: Jehovah cares for you. Not just for people in general. You. Psalm 34:18 says he is close to the brokenhearted. If your heart feels like shattered glass, he is nearest now. That Friday, I did something small but huge. I accepted Angela's invitation to attend a congregation meeting. "Just come and see," she said. No pressure. I almost said no. What if someone recognized me? What if Mark found out? But then I remembered her prayer, and my own, and I said yes. That yes would change everything. When I walked into the Kingdom Hall for the first time, I braced for judgment. Instead, I found warmth, the kind you can't fake. People smiled like they meant it. "Child." I sat next to Angela, heart pounding, and opened the songbook. The first words we sang? "Jehovah is your refuge." I almost couldn't finish because my throat had turned into a river. That night, after the meeting, I didn't rush home. I sat in my car under a street lamp and cried the kind of tears that clean instead of crush. For the first time in forever, I thought, maybe my story isn't over. Maybe it's just starting. If hope had a sound, for me it was paper turning in the Kingdom Hall that night. Pages soft as whispers, voices reading promises out loud, promises I had never believed were mine. When the meeting ended, I wanted to stay in that chair forever. But real life doesn't stay in tidy chairs. Real life waits at home with questions in its fists. The next few weeks were a blur of double lives. By day, I was the wife who smiled when Mark's friends came over, who made casseroles and folded laundry just so. By lunch hour, I was the student with a blue notebook, underlining scriptures like they were oxygen. At night, in the bathroom with the fan running to drown out whispers, I prayed with words that felt stronger than my bones. One afternoon, after we studied a lesson about God's purpose for families, I asked Angela the question that had been clawing at me like a trapped bird. Does Jehovah hate me for wanting to leave? My voice cracked on the last word. Angela didn't rush to answer. She closed her tablet and looked me straight in the eye, steady as sunlight. Naomi, she said, Jehovah hates violence. He hates cruelty. The Bible says he is a God of love and justice. He values your life more than a piece of paper. Then she opened to Psalm 11 verse 5, Jehovah examines the righteous one as well as the wicked one. He hates anyone who loves violence. I stared at the words until they blurred. For years, I had been taught that leaving meant failure, sin, shame. But here was Jehovah saying the real shame was hurting someone he loves. And he loved me. Precious. That word again. Precious enough to protect. Angela went on, you have the right to safety. The Bible doesn't tell anyone to stay in harm's way. And you're not alone. The congregation will support you. Then she added something practical, something that made my heart race. When you're ready, we can make a plan. Ready. The word felt heavy and light all at once. Was I ready? My body screamed yes every time Mark's voice turned sharp. My fear whispered no every time I imagined his rage. But my prayers were changing. They weren't just, help me survive. They were, help me move. Jehovah was teaching me courage one verse at a time. It was a Thursday. I had cooked Mark's favorite, roast chicken, garlic mashed potatoes, green beans. The house smelled like effort. He came home late, his face tight. Why isn't the mail sorted, he asked, like the envelopes were grenades. I said, I was working late. He slammed the drawer so hard the forks rattled. Then he grabbed my arm, not a shove, not a slap, but a grip that burned. Don't start talking back, he hissed. Something broke inside me, but it wasn't fear this time. It was the illusion that staying was safer than leaving. Later, when he fell asleep on the couch, I sat in the dark kitchen and whispered, Jehovah, please. I can't live like this. Show me what to do. The next morning, I texted Angela, I think I'm ready. She replied in seconds, I'll help you. One step at a time. We'll do this safely. That word, safely, wrapped around me like a blanket. The plan wasn't dramatic. It was methodical, loving, discreet. Angela looped in 2 elders' wives who became like a second spine to me. They helped me find a shelter run by kind women who didn't ask cruel questions. They coached me on what to pack, IDs, a few clothes, cash if possible. Pray about each step, Angela said. Jehovah will hold your hand. We read Isaiah 41 verse 13 together. Jehovah your God, am grasping your right hand, the one saying to you, do not be afraid. I will help you. I copied it on an index card and tucked it in my bra like armor. The hardest part was silence. I couldn't tell my sister yet, Mark checked my calls. I couldn't act nervous, he noticed everything. So I prayed while stirring soup, prayed while folding towels, prayed while smiling through conversations that tasted like ash. Each prayer felt like sliding one more brick off my chest. The day came on a whisper. A Saturday morning when Mark went to meet a friend. I told him I'd clean the house. Instead, I packed the tote I'd hidden in the linen closet. The sound of the zipper was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. My hands shook so hard I nearly dropped the car keys. I drove to the library parking lot, the same place where light first cracked my darkness, and met Angela. She hugged me like a sister who'd been waiting a lifetime. You're safe now, she said. We drove in silence to the shelter, my heart thudding like a drum in a war I was finally leaving behind. That night, in a small room with clean sheets and no shouting walls, I knelt on the floor and prayed longer than I ever had in my life. Jehovah, I whispered, thank you. Please give me strength for whatever comes next. Peace didn't flood me all at once. But it seeped in, slow and steady, like sunlight melting frost. Word spread quietly among the brothers and sisters, not gossip, but love and motion. Meals appeared at the shelter. A sister offered rides to meetings. An elder called just to pray with me over the phone. For the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. I felt seen, held, safe. One sister said something that made me cry into my tea. Jehovah rejoices when his daughters choose peace. That night, I underlined Psalm 34 verse 18 in my Bible. Jehovah is close to the brokenhearted. He saves those who are crushed in spirit. I wrote in the margin, that's me. And he's close. Practical lesson for you, my viewer. if you're trapped in any situation that crushes your spirit, listen to me. Jehovah does not want you to stay in pain. He sees every tear. He calls you precious. He promises help. Throw your anxiety on him. And let his people help you, too. The hardest decision of my life wasn't leaving. It was believing I deserved to. Jehovah taught me that through his word and through hands that held without hurting. And step by step, prayer by prayer, I walked out of shadows into something like morning. The first morning I woke up without fear, I didn't recognize the sound. It was silence, the good kind, like a soft pillow over the noise in my head. I was in a small room at the shelter, but to me, it felt like a kingdom. No slamming doors. No raised voices. No footsteps creeping like storms. Just sunlight on the wall and the whisper of a promise, you are free. I sat on the edge of the bed and opened the little Bible Angela had given me weeks earlier. My fingers trembled, not from fear, but from awe. I landed on Isaiah 32 verse 18, my people will dwell in a peaceful abiding place, in secure dwellings, and in tranquil resting places. I traced the words with my finger and thought, this is me. This is now. The first Sunday I walked into the Kingdom Hall as a free woman, I expected whispers, questions, maybe even judgment. Instead, I got hugs, warm, real hugs that felt like the arms of Jehovah himself. Brothers and sisters smiled like sunlight, and children laughed in ways that reminded me why I fought for peace. After the meeting, a sister handed me a plate of cookies wrapped in foil. Another pressed a handwritten card into my hand, we're so glad you're here. Jehovah loves you. My throat tightened, and I whispered a prayer right there in the parking lot, thank you, Jehovah. Thank you for giving me a family. Leaving the abuse was just the first step. Learning to live without fear, that was the journey. There were nights I woke up sweating, heart pounding, expecting anger that never came. There were mornings when guilt sat heavy on my chest like a stone, whispering lies, you failed. You broke vows. But then I'd open my Bible and read Psalm 55 verse 22 again, throw your burden on Jehovah, and he will sustain you. And I would whisper, Jehovah, take this burden. Please carry it for me. Every study with Angela was like pulling another brick out of the wall around my heart. We talked about Jehovah's qualities, love, justice, mercy, and for the first time in years, I believed those words applied to me. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was healing. It didn't happen overnight. It was months of studying, praying, crying, and rebuilding. But the day came when I stood in a warm pool of water at an assembly, wearing a simple white dress, and dedicated my life to Jehovah. When I came up from that water, it felt like chains snapping off my soul. I looked at the faces of the friends in the crowd. Angela, the sisters who brought meals, the brothers who prayed with me, and I saw proof of Jehovah's love in every smile. That night, I wrote in my journal, Jehovah is real. His promises are real. And so is peace. I have my own apartment now. A little one-bedroom with second-hand furniture and a plant that refuses to die. It's quiet, but not the lonely kind. It's the quiet of safety. The quiet of prayers answered. I have friends who are family, a congregation that cheers for every step I take, and a God who never stops seeing me, not for a second. Sometimes I look back at the woman I was, the one staring at bruises in a bathroom mirror, wondering if God even knew her name, and I want to hold her, tell her, wait. Morning is coming. Jehovah's got you. Because he did. He always did. If you are watching this and you feel trapped, by abuse, by fear, by anything that steals your peace, please hear me, Jehovah sees you. He loves you. You are precious to him. Psalm 34:18 says he is close to the brokenhearted. That means right now, he is closer to you than your own breath. Don't believe the lie that you have to stay where you're being hurt. Jehovah does not approve of violence. He values your life. Reach out, pray, call someone safe, and let Jehovah hold your hand like he held mine. And if you've already started that journey, keep going. It's worth every tear, every prayer, every step. Because on the other side of fear is a life filled with peace you can't imagine now, but Jehovah can. Thank you, my dear friends, for listening to my story. If this touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next faith-building story. Share this with someone who needs hope. You never know whose life you might change. And remember, no matter what storm you face, Jehovah is stronger. Trust Him. Always.